Councillor Glancy.
Thank you. Right, welcome everybody this evening to another planning meeting on today's date is the Thursday, the 6th of August. First of all, as usual, I'll do a little bit of general housekeeping. I'm Councillor Margaret Glancy, Chair of Planning. Prior to this evening's meeting, we have just been testing the technology and confirm the speakers are in attendance and can be heard. I also confirm that I can see and or hear my fellow participating members here this evening. Those members are Councillor Brown, Councillor Chandler, Councillor Faulkner, Councillor Glancy myself, Councillor Hewson, Councillor Higgins, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Posnett, Councillor Smedley, Councillor Steadman, and I can't see, and Councillor Wood, I've just spotted you. Thank you. We also have a team of officers here this evening. Solicitor to the Council, Bob Power, our Assistant Director of Strategic Planning and Regulatory Services, Jim Worley, Planning Officer, Andrew Cunningham, our members of our Democratic Service team, Natasha Taylor and Sarah Evans. So welcome everybody. Members speaking, please use the raise hand facility on your screen and a member of the Democratic Service team will make a note and inform me accordingly. Members voting. Please note a remote member participating in a vote will cast his or her vote as if participating in a recorded vote. I will ask members alphabetically for their vote, either for, against or abstain. All microphones will be unmuted whilst the vote is being recorded. And following the vote, all microphones will be returned to mute. Disruption to remote conferencing. I refer you to the remote meeting procedure rules. In the event of a link failure for all attendees, I will call a short adjournment for up to 5 minutes. If the link cannot be re-established, the meeting should be adjourned to a later date. In the event of a link failure to individual members, the remote members will be deemed to have left the meeting at the point of failure of the equipment. And if the link cannot be re-established before the end of the meeting, then the assumption will be that the meeting should continue to deal with the items providing the meeting remains quorate. If there is disruption with a member's connectivity, the Council will determine whether a member has heard enough of the debate to be able to lawfully vote, depending on the particular circumstances and how much the member has missed. Just to remind everybody, this meeting is being recorded, and remember it is being live streamed. I'd be grateful if you put your phones onto silent. The first item on our agenda is apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Bindloss, and Councillor Smedley has very kindly agreed to substitute for Councillor Bindloss. Item 2, declarations of interest. Please note the content of the advice on members' interests, and if you think you have a personal, other non-pecuniary or pecuniary interest, or indeed bias, please state that now. Councillor Higgins.
Yes, so in application, which is item 3.2, application 20-00102-FUL, former Southfields Farm, Church Lane, Somerby, I subscribe to the Greenow principle and voted that a ward councillor should not sit on the planning committee if more than 10 comments come in, which is contrary to the officer recommendation. And I will be representing the ward and discussing the matters on behalf of the ward in relation to my conversations with the applicant and also objectors. So I will not be voting on that. So I will be representing the ward on that matter. Thank you.
So you won't be taking part in the debate either, I presume?
Yes, so I won't be taking part in the debate. I will speaking as a ward councillor.
So you will move to the public gallery, and so to speak,
yes.
should we have a physical meeting? Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Posnett.
I'd just like to declare my interest as a member of Leicestershire County Council if any issues come up related to the County Council. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Holmes, have the hand raised.
And I'm unmuted now, I wasn't before.
Yep.
It's the field at Brooksby Road, Hobie. My son-in-law is a member of the parish council, but he has been away for 2 months. So it's just that somebody said something about me voting because my son-in-law was a member of the parish council before at one of these Hobie ones, and I cannot see there's any reason why I shouldn't speak or vote on it, because I don't know the person who's, I don't know anything about it. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Right, I think that, any others? No, okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. We have 3 items on the agenda this evening. Find my papers. The first item is at 3.1, which is 19-01113 Field OS 8695 Brooksby Road, Hobie. I presume it's, I don't know which officer's going to do this one. It's Jim Worley. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Am I still with you? And,
Yeah, we can hear you.
and is the screen doing what it should now?
It is, yes.
We'll carry on then.
Yes, brilliant.
Okay. As the report sets out, this is a full application for 4 discounted market sale dwellings. The discount being 75% of open market value for the detail, and as a consequence, the relocation of the children's play area a few meters to the south. You will see, if I can make this work. Sorry, that slide's tilted on its side, so to speak, just because of its shape. But you can see on the right-hand side, the houses mapped out there, and they're a pair of semis, 2 pairs of semis, basically, was the access point right in the centre at the front of them onto Brooksby Road. There's no updates on this application, so the report is up to date. So just to race through it, the background to this application is a wish to try and satisfy a need that was identified in the local housing needs study, of very local parish level housing needs study in 2017, using the provisions of policy C5 of the local plan, which is sites for affordable housing. The officer's view is that whilst it achieves this in terms of meeting that need, another consent already in place is also doing the same thing, and that's the application, the permission rather, at Brooksby on the Spinney site that we granted permission for earlier this year. But I do have to say, consider this to be a balanced position, and rather need to qualify that statement, because we recognise it's satisfied on paper. This consent at Brooksby hasn't been implemented yet, so there's no bricks and mortar to physically satisfy the need. So your judgment is required as to whether, as to the weight and the importance that you give to that permission. I would also say, in a similar fashion, I think your judgment is required as to some other aspects of this application. First and foremost, that even without the needs argument, the provision of affordable housing is usually regarded as a positive just per se. So it scores points from that front, in my opinion. And also, as set out in the report, it gives a longer lifespan to the play area, because that's on a shaky peg, if the units use the colloquialism at the moment. So, like all these applications, never quite straightforward. It's why we bring them to committee. And there's two sides to this story, but the officer's view is that the fundamentals here around C5 is meeting an unmet need, and we feel that's already met because of the consent I referred to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do members have any questions of Jim Worley relating directly to this particular application? I can't see the panel list on the side, Natasha, so I don't know if anyone has their hand raised.
I'll just check now for you, Councillor Clancy. No, there's no. Bob Power has his hand raised. The legal officer.
All right, we can see. I can see it now. Yes, Bob, you're on mute.
Just a small point, Chairman. I think Jim said that the discount proposed was 75%. It's 25% of market value, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, right, that's all.
Discounted to 75%. That'd be a cheap house.
Councillor Higgins, you have a question?
It was the same point, so well spotted, Bob. But there was a slight, just another small point. In terms of the who this goes to, has that been determined because of who it could go to? That's all. That was all to the officer.
Yeah, the proposal here is, if successful, a 106 would apply, and it would that local connection that's become almost routine in these matters, but especially important in this case because it would be directly linked to the needs that is the whole source of it.
Okay. Right. Thank you very much for that. We have two speakers on this application this evening. The first speaker is Councillor Stuart Robinson from Hobey and Rotherby Parish Council. If you could call Councillor Robinson forward, please.
Councillor Robinson should just be joining us now.
Hi. You're actually on mute, Councillor Robinson.
Is that better? Can you hear me?
That's much better. I can hear you now, and I'm sure that other members can. Councillor Robinson, you have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The Hobey with Rotherby Parish Council is unanimously opposed to this application for many reasons, but some of which are: a housing needs survey conducted by Midland Rural Housing in August 2017 identified the need for 4 two-bedroomed affordable dwellings within the parish. The recently approved scheme at Brooksby Spinney site is to provide 6 affordable dwellings. The Parish Council believe it is important these dwellings are affordable and are available for qualifying persons within the parish in perpetuity. Brooksby Melton College have agreed to endeavour to achieve this goal. Since Brooksby Melton College decoupled the King Street Melton site from the proposed development, greater interest has been shown. The principal of the college has recently informed the Parish Council that negotiations are well advanced with one developer and a sale is expected to be agreed in the near future. Affordable housing needs to be supported by public transport. Only Brooksby ward within the parish has a bus service. The application site is currently leased to the Parish Council for a play area. The landowner offered the Parish Council the option to relocate the play area to a section of the site to the south, which falls within flood zone 2 and 3. The Parish Council declined this offer for the following reason. The site regularly floods, the last time being February this year. The site is heavily shaded, and during the months of November to March is in shade most of the day. Therefore, morning frost and ice is slow to clear. Not a healthy environment. Photographs have been provided. The site is next to the Hobey Severn Trent pumping station. During the last 10 years, this has twice discharged into the stream at the rear of the site in 2010 and 2017. In February this year, a resident of the dwellings to the north of the site informed the Parish Council that the area came perilously close to flood. In fact, one dwelling a little further north on the Thrussington Road was flooded. As a result, the parish council has formed a subcommittee to try to find a solution to the flooding problem in this area. The application site is identified as an important green space in the parish neighbourhood development plan, which is now in Regulation 16. The site also falls outside the settlement boundary as defined in this emerging
30 seconds,
neighbourhood
Chairman.
development plan. And finally, but no less importantly, Meldon Borough Council and the Parish Council have declared a climate emergency. This application does not address any climate sustainability issues in the design of the dwellings. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do members have any questions for Councillor Robinson? We have one. Councillor Higgins, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Robinson. I take a great interest in affordable housing. The statement you said that affordable housing must have public transport. Is that anywhere written or defined at all? Because I'm not aware of that, and it's just an interest point, really.
Okay.
Or is that your personal opinion? That's where I'm coming.
Well, number one, I don't know. I'm not a planning expert. In reading, it is strongly recommended, I believe, that affordable housing has public transport links close to it, and that's all I can say. As for the regulation, whatever, I've read a fair bit about it. That's all I can say.
So you said from reading, is just out of interest, is that in the National Planning Policy Framework, or where have you picked that from? That's all I'm interested in.
Well, that's a very good point. I cannot remember the exact place. That's fine.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Just a point of interest, Chair, as I have a big interest in affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you for that. True. Do you want to put your hand down, please, Councillor Higgins, unless you've got anything else to ask? Right. Well, thank you very much. I don't see any other hands raised. So thank you very much, Councillor Robinson. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Our second speaker on this evening is Colin Wilkinson, who's the agent. If we can bring Mr. Wilkinson forward, please.
Can you hear and see me?
Can do, although you're a bit faint. You might have to shout.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll get a bit closer.
That's it, that's better.
Okay, fine.
Right, you have 3 minutes, Mr. Wilkinson.
Thank you. This plan application was submitted 10 months ago. The proposal responds positively to the Parish Council's Housing Needs Survey, which identified a need for 4 two-bed affordable shared ownership homes, mostly from Hooby Village. The applicant has also generously offered to replace the existing play area, which she owns and is subject to a now expired lease. The proposal relocates the play area to another part of the same field and offered to the Parish Council on favourable terms. There are no technical or design objections, and the application is supported by local plan policies SS3 and C5. Policy SS1 says that the application should have been approved without delay. The only objection concerns the so-called affordable housing at Brooksby Melton College's Spinney campus. This was agreed at the end of May 2020, well after my client's application should have been decided. Even if you feel that there would be an oversupply of affordable homes, the application better meets the needs of local people for the following reason. The college has just 3 months to sell the site and submit full details before permission expires. Development may not happen. It has had outline planning permission for 3 years under better economic conditions than today, but not a single brick has been laid. The affordable housing on its site is triggered late in the development once most market houses have been built. They are years away. My client's application is in full, it is shovel ready. Unlike the Spinney scheme, my client's proposal meets the housing needs that arise from the village in which it is located. The application offers an affordable discount of 25%. The discount on the Spinney site is less and fails the requirements of your own affordable housing SPD, so it is unaffordable to local people in need. There is considerable interest in the homes to be provided by my client's application, and we have provided their details. All live, work, or have a caring responsibility linked to Hobie Village. If you refuse this scheme, local affordable housing needs will
30
be
seconds, Chairman.
Okay.
and a play area lost to the community. If you're lucky, you might get some housing for local people that they cannot afford in a place where they do not want to live, with no facilities from some years from now. If you plan positively and approve this application, you will be providing affordable homes that match local needs. The opportunity to replace the children's play area remains. If you wanted, you could tell the college that there is more flexibility in the Section 106 package, increasing the
3 minutes,
likelihood
Chairman.
that the
Thank you.
Spinney site will be sold and more funding available for college facilities.
Have
We
Have you
invite-
completed now, Mr. Wilkinson? Because
I
you've had.
haven't done it. Yes, that's fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry to have stopped you abruptly, but we're on a bit of a tight schedule this evening. Thank you. Do we have any questions of Mr. Wilkinson, members? Yes, Councillor Higgins, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Mr. Wilkinson, it was just a point where you were just being curtailed, but I was a bit concerned how you said it, where about we could go back to the college and use money back for college facilities. We can't look at that though, can we? We can't look at the college one. We're looking at this scheme and how this works. We're not looking at the college. That's where I was just getting confused from.
Yeah, if you feel that there is an oversupply of affordable housing because of this scheme, there is an opportunity. You've been in negotiations for some time about the Section 106 agreement. It's not the first time you've done it either on the Spinney site. And I'm sure that there are developers who may or may not be interested in the site, but they would certainly be more interested if the Borough Council was prepared to be more flexible on the affordable housing requirement. That's the point.
Okay, thank you. So that answered your question, Councillor Higgins. Yeah. Councillor Chandler, you have a question? Need to take yourself off mute.
Am I
Thank you.
allowed? Yes, or I had a power cut. That's where you
Okay.
lost me. It
Oh
was
dear.
on hold, so am I allowed to speak or not on the application, as I've not been here for the whole application?
Some guidance on that, Mr. Power.
It rather depends on what Councillor Chandler has missed. I'm not sure what if she could tell us what she's missed.
I went off at approximately 5 to 6.
Oh, you've missed.
And came back on when?
About 5 minutes ago.
Mm.
Well, Sarah Evans will tell you when I came back on again.
I think Councillor Chandler has
We missed some speaking. Yeah.
Councillor Robinson's address to the committee and some of Colin Wilkinson's.
I think it would be prudent to probably abstain in this case if the councillor's not heard that part of the the committee's deliberation.
That's all I want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prue. It's fairly important stuff, isn't it? Okay, any more questions for Mr. Wilkinson? You still have your hand raised, Councillor Chandler, if you'd like to put that down. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you very much, Councillor Colin Wilkinson. Thank you. We can move Mr. Wilkinson to the attendees list. Thank you. Right. Well, do we have any further comments to make on the speakers this evening, officers? And any further points you want to add, Mr. Worley?
Yeah, just briefly, as I made, what Mr. Wilkinson set out in terms of the timetables of the applications is factually correct, but there's not a causal relationship there. It's just been the two applications following their independent courses. And it certainly wasn't the case that the college's application was rushed through. It itself came in December shortly after this one and didn't get approved till May. So we won't break any records there.
No, I mean, things happen when they happen. There's no set reason why it happened like that, and it wasn't controlled. It just evolved at different times, I would think, in my view. Right, members, do you have any questions for officers before we start the debate? We have a few hands up. Councillor Steadman.
Yeah, just a point of clarification from something Mr. Wilkinson said, and I'm sure Mr. Worley will know the answer to this. He said that the Brooksby site has only got three months left to sell the site before planning runs out. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's November this year. Reserve matters have to be in.
To answer your question, Bob, you have your hand raised.
Sorry, it was just a point that Councillor Higgins raised. It was my understanding, and Jim may want to comment on this, it's my understanding that availability of public transport is a general advantage to residential development. It's not something specific for affordable housing. I don't know if Jim wants to comment.
Yeah, when I was listening earlier, I thought to myself, I can't think of anywhere where it says affordable housing must have public transport. It's in the more general terms of it being sustainable locations, just like other forms of development, of which public transport is a part, but not the totality.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Steadman, you still have your hand raised. Right, you don't know. I thought I saw Councillor Holmes. Yes, here it is again. Councillor Holmes, you have your hand raised. And you're on mute.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I was going to ask the same question about the time scale, but the other thing was about this business of not being on a bus route. Surely this is for Jim, for Mr. Worley. If it is really a very rural village that doesn't have a lot of or any, or they don't have anything in there, sort of like factories or anything like that. I think there's a market garden. Surely it is always better, isn't it, to be able to be on a public transport route. I'm only thinking of ones in my ward, that's all, that it's always more favourable if you're on a route that people can go other places, a bus route.
Yeah, precisely. Excellent choice of words. More favourable, but black and white line or a pass or fail line.
Right. Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of officers before we start the debate? I can see some head shaking, so obviously no. Right. Over to you, members. Please don't forget to raise your hand if you would want to speak. Councillor Higgins, you have your hand raised.
This application is a very interesting application. It's one of the few that come to us, which gives us a decision to make based on its merits and some of the more experienced members who've been on planning committees before the local plan came into place. I see this more about the balance of positives versus the negatives. As Councillor Holmes said, it is a negative that there isn't any public transport, but again, affordable housing, which is a massive positive for it too. Hobie is a lovely village, and I would think that there'd be a lot of people who would love to live in Hobie because it's just such a great village, great community as well. That's why I can't support the officer, not necessarily the recommendation for refuse, because I think there are merits to refuse this, and I'll go into that just a touch later. But I do not believe that the application site at Brooksby has, to me, any bearing at all on this at all. It's just a total facade. I live in a village, and I wouldn't thank you to go on to affordable housing in Brooksby if I lived in Hobie. If I lived in Hobie, grew up in Hobie, had family in Hobie, I want to stay in Hobie. I don't want to go to Brooksby where there is no pub, no village hall, no shop, no community dormitory. It's going to be a dormitory village. And to be honest, that's why I voted to reject that application. I think it was a bit of a shame, really, but hey ho, that's where we are. It's great that we've got affordable housing there, but I think, as Mr. Wilkinson said, wouldn't it be great to get a few more extra affordable houses? So that's where this application comes in its merit. That said, and why I'm really struggling with this application is the play area. And I think the parish council were very right in having that concern. And to me, it's just a step too far of moving the play area into, while it would be planning wise okay, acceptable as the officer report states, we don't have to accept it that way. It's this balance, and I'm sorry, it's just the step too far. So I can't support the officer recommendation or the reason C5. I think, to me, it's more D1, and moving the children's play area there, to me, is just a step too far. But I hope that the applicant, the agent's on there. I think it's a fantastic scheme and an idea that they've come up with. I hope we have more of these type of things to get 100% affordable housing. But you've got to work with the community a bit more, and I think work with the ward councillor, work with the parish council, work with that village, and see what you can come up with together. And I would be voting for this, but I can't support it because of the children's play area, and it is there at this moment in time. So that's why I'm going to be backing that one, and I'll be backing the community on that. But yeah, back to the drawing board is my view on it.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Steadman, I think you were next.
With me. Right, unlike Councillor Higgins, I have come to the planning committee after a made local plan. So I do actually see this more about the policies than the balance. I do agree with C5, but I actually think, considering that 6 affordable houses are on the Brooksby site, and this is about the policies, and there's only 4 identified need for 4 in Hobie, so that need is met, then I actually think if we pass this and Brooksby goes through, we'll have 10 affordable houses in this parish, and we will be going against policy SS3. I agree with Councillor Higgins on the play area, particularly C7, which is rural services, which is support will be given to proposals and activities that protect, retain or enhance existing community services and facilities, which includes playing fields. And I think there's also a case for policy C9, which is good quality, accessible green spaces as well.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, I think you're next.
Yeah,
Would you
thank
like
you,
to
Chair.
put your hand,
Yeah.
put your hand down?
Put my hand down now. Okay.
No, Councillor
Okay,
Steadman, put your hand down.
Sorry.
Right, okay.
Okay.
Councillor Brown, you're next.
Sorry, Chair.
I'm just watching the list on the right hand side.
I was a bit confused there. Sorry. Just in relation to this, like Councillor Higgins, you know, whether me and Councillor Higgins fight out for who's more in support of affordable housing and social housing is going to be always a bit of a debate, and some here. So, you know, I am usually always the first to actually fight for as much affordable housing as possible. But what we have here is we have a situation where maybe a little bit of dialogue between the applicant and the parish council might have brought together a better outcome in relation to the village and for all the wants and needs of the village. But ultimately, looking at the site, looking at the floods that we had this February, moving the play area into the area it is, and also the risk that if that pumping station fails, you've got sewage on it. And we all know that when sewage goes in play areas, you're talking a good probably 3-4 months to get areas cleaned off and etc. etc. So, you know, we've been there, we've seen that happen in various parts of the borough. But also as well as I do agree that it not only is it C5, it's also D1, and there's also an environmental impact of doing this. And I do think that the transport issue is relevant. In the MPPF, it is only guidance, obviously, but we did have a bus service that's now removed. The village is much more isolated, etc. And I think with a little bit of dialogue, both parties could have come together and looked at what are the other alternatives where a play area could go in this village, because moving in there will mean it will be probably lost, because it won't be used or won't be used for a good part of the year. So for me, that is a move too far, and I'm going to be supporting the officer recommendation.
Thank you very much. I have Councillor Holmes next.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Oh, am I muted or not?
No, I can hear you. I'm
You can
definitely,
hear
everybody
right.
else can. Thank you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for all those reasons, and there are many, I also, believe it or not, think that we should have affordable houses. I was talking to somebody today about it. I actually are absolutely for that. But in this area, I think it is probably not necessary if everything happens at Brooksby, because I think that was the reason I proposed Brooksby, because I thought, well, at least we're getting some affordables there for the local people. And I also think it is vitally important to actually have some sort of bus service on the 607, because we have some affordable housing at Waltham, and some people really do still use buses. It is really important. There's just nowhere, you cannot go anywhere, and if you haven't got a car and it's remote, you really need to be on a main road. And so I would like to propose that we go with the recommendations of the officers. So I'll propose it.
Thank you. Councillor Faulkner, are you willing to second the motion?
No, I wasn't going to second it at this stage, no, sorry.
Okay. Councillor Steadman?
Yes, I will second the motion, but could I ask Councillor Holmes if she would be prepared to add in C9, C7 and possibly SS3?
Yeah, I thought SS3 actually. Yeah, that is fine.
And
absolutely fine.
D1 was also mentioned as well.
It was, yeah.
D1 was definitely mentioned.
Definitely, yeah.
But can we add those in then, and Jim can juggle them around, and I will second that, yes.
Could you just repeat those numbers again, please, for me, because I'll just make a note of them. Sorry.
So it's C5.
I've got that.
Which was the officer's recommendation. C9, which is the good quality, accessible green spaces and sports facilities.
Yeah.
C7, which is rural services, which is play areas.
And D1.
Like that.
And D1.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
D1.
It's just the 7 I'd missed out when I was writing.
Yeah.
And I think possibly if the need is met by Brooksby and that site is sold, then we will be in the realms of SS3. I don't know if it's appropriate to put that in at this point.
Yeah, I put SS3 down.
It's just quite a lot.
Can I just clarify where we're then,
yes, please, Jim, if you wouldn't mind.
It's not just adding more policies to a reason for refusal that's already drafted. You're adding 2 or 3 more reasons.
Mm.
So the D11 would be about design, the C9 one would be about the inadequacy of the open space, the C7 about losing the facility, as well as the one that's already drafted in the papers.
Mm.
The 4 reasons instead of 1.
Yeah.
Are we happy with that, members?
Oh, I've got it.
Often for it, more reasons is not necessarily best. It's good. We've always been advised it's good to have 1 or 2 really strong ones. But if the members feel that 4 reasons are strong, then we have the proposal and it has been seconded. Councillor Faulkner.
Yes, thank you, Chair. A couple of things. Number one, on this idea of offering the play part area to be moved to where it is as a good thing, I think it's anything but a good thing in this situation. So I wasn't happy with that at all. The other thing is the bus service. I'm fairly certain that when the bus service was withdrawn, it was replaced with a demand responsive transport scheme. I don't know what happened with that, because I'm sure I tendered for it, but I didn't get it, so I don't know if that actually went ahead. But I'm sure there was something put in place for public transport in that respect. I'll just make that for clarification. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Higgins, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, it's just to be clear with other members, obviously also the applicant and the parish council, because I will really struggle to vote for C5 and SS3. I think the need is there. We've got the paperwork, and it's Hobie, and and you're now saying that people need to live in Brooksby, which is not in Hobie. It's a different village. It's maybe part of the parish, but it's not the same kind of thing. So to me, and you do have that need there anyway. So the other thing, I think, like Councillor Faulkner said, I think he is right on that, but I couldn't confirm that one. And transport, because it's affordable housing by buying the house. I think if you were going to buy the house and invest in all that pay stamp duty and all that, and then go, oh dear, it doesn't have a bus, I think you'll do more due diligence on that one. So that's why I'm not so much on the transport. But for me, it's definitely C7 and C9, and I would back those ones, but I'm going to be voting against this motion only on that. But I do think it's a refusal. And all I will say before any votes called, Chair, is to the applicant, as Councillor Brown said, speak to the parish council, speak to the ward councillor, speak to the community. I think you could do something if you all work together, and I would be backing for affordable housing of this nature, but not by trashing the play area. That's not cricket, to put an analogy on it. Thank you.
Bearing in mind it's a play area. Mr. Power, did you want to offer some advice at this point?
Chairman, yes, please, and Jim may want to comment too. Jim indicated that one of the policies related to design, but I haven't heard any criticism of the design, and we should only be giving reasons that we're confident that are sustainable in the event of an appeal and that we can defend. So, I have considerable concerns about that. And sometimes in planning, less is more, really. You shouldn't, it's a mistake to think that your decision is going to stand a better chance of being upheld if you just throw a lot of reasons at it. So at that point, I don't know if John wants to comment on it.
I noticed a fleeting reference to design earlier in the fact that somebody, sorry if I get to, criticised the plans for not having a high standard of environmental credentials.
I said it, Mr. Worley, mainly because of obviously moving the play area was the D1 part for me.
Well, that's more directly by the C7 and C9 stuff, so D1 might be double counting if that's the purpose of it.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Power, you still have your hand raised. More advice? Oh, right, it's gone down now then. Councillor Steadman.
Sorry, yes, I think I would agree with Councillor Higgins there on the D1. I don't think it's that appropriate to this application. I think people are more concerned about when it comes to design is the moving of the actual play park, not the actual design of the houses. I'd also agree with Councillor Brown and Councillor Higgins that I think there could be a good deal done here for the village and for the applicant if they put their heads together and talked about it a bit more. Right, would Councillor Holmes be willing to remove policy D1?
Just what I was going to ask.
Sorry, Chair.
Am I still?
You are? No, you're live. We can hear you.
I'm alive, yeah. Well, I'm quite happy to remove that.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go to, should we go to the vote? Because I think,
I still have other people here first before we go to the vote.
right,
So basically it's C9, C7, C9 and C5 is the, what about SS3? Is that still on as part of the motion?
I thought SS3 was quite important, actually.
Okay, right. So I'm just making my notes. So it's not D1. Okay, and we now have Councillor Faulkner. I thought we did anyway.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I'd lowered my hand, but it seems to have stayed up.
Oh no,
Yeah,
right. Okay, so okay, thank you. So does anybody else wish to make comments on this one before we go to the vote? Right. No. Well, I must admit, I do fully support the officer's recommendation on this application, but also the inclusion of C9, C7 and SS3 on this particular one. So if we go to the vote now, to vote for the motion to refuse in line with the officer's recommendation plus policies C7, C9 and SS3. I'll go down the list alphabetically. The first one is Councillor Brown. Are you for, against, or are you going to abstain?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Chandler, I presume you're abstaining because you didn't hear the bulk of the speakers.
I'll take the advice of the legal officer, Madam Chairman, and abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Faulkner?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Glancy, for. Councillor Hewson?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins?
I'm voting against, but it's because of SS3 and C5, that's all.
Okay. Councillor Holmes?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Posnett?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Smedley?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Steadman?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Wood?
For.
Thank you. 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 9 votes for, 1 against and 1 abstention. So the motion to refuse is carried. So thank you, everybody, and thank you very much to speakers for coming along this evening. If you wish to leave the meeting now, please feel free. Thank you.
Councillor Glancy, before you move to the next item, shall I move Councillor Higgins into the attendees?
I think that's a good idea. Thank you.
First time, this one. Yeah, first time I've been moved there.
Goodbye, Councillor Higgins, for the moment.
See you later.
Thank you. Right, the next item on the agenda is 3.2, which is 20/00102/4, former Southfields Farm, Church Lane, Somerby. Officers to address the committee, I presume it's Andrew Cunningham, is it? Yes, right, okay, I've just spotted you. All these faces on my screen. Thank you, Andrew. If you'd like to deliver your report to the members, that'd be brilliant.
For Jim to load up the screen, thank you. Okay. This application seeks full planning permission for the development of 10 dwellings on land at the former Southfields Farm, Church Lane in Somerby. The site currently benefits from an extant outline planning permission for 12 dwellings, which also included the demolition of farm buildings previously on the site. This demolition has already taken place. A suitable housing mix is being provided of predominantly 2 and 3 beds, as well as 2 bungalows and 1 discount for sale property. Contributions to primary and secondary education provision are also to be secured by a Section 106 agreement. The layout of the site continues the linear form of development along Church Lane, with a courtyard style in the southern part of the site. This courtyard cluster, along with an appropriate scale and density of development, is considered to integrate the new housing within the landscape framework at this edge of the settlement site. If Jim can move on to the elevation detailing, thank you. A high level of design detailing is also proposed, for example, stone plinths, chimneys, headers, sills, dental courses, and timber-clad elements on the bungalows as well to represent the barns previously on the site. The application site sits on the edge of the conservation area with only part of the driveway within. Given the sympathetically designed development proposed and due to the removal of the now demolished agricultural buildings, the application is considered to have bring a positive benefits to the conservation area. Access to the site for the occupiers of the development would be via Church Lane only. Significant consideration was given within the determination of the previous outline application in respect of highway safety, and that Church Lane had been used extensively by the previous farm vehicles and milk tankers. In addition to this, the current proposal will be a betterment to the previously permitted outline application with a net reduction in trips being for 10 dwellings rather than the approved 12. Parking provision is provided for each plot and there's a few additional spaces for visitors and overflow for the church. A turning head is also provided, which would allow all vehicles, not only the ones serving the development, but all vehicles along Church Lane to utilise. Construction traffic is proposed from a temporary access track from Euston Road, so they would not use Church Lane to access the development. The local highways authority have raised no objections to the use of Church Lane, given the consideration had within the previously permitted scheme. And after speaking with the highways officer this week, they would raise concerns if the track to Euston Road were to be used by the future occupiers of the development. No concerns are raised on grounds of residential amenities, ecology, archaeological matters, contamination or drainage, and as such the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions and a Section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Right. Before we move on, I have one question, Andrew. I was looking at the Leicestershire County Council's sort of consultation response to this, and they recommended three, well, I think it was 3 or 4 various sort of conditions, and there was one that I can't see actually on the report. And it was the one which it said development hereby permitted shall not be occupied until such time as the access drive and any turning space has been surfaced and with tar macadam or similar hardbound material, not loose aggregate, for a distance of at least 10 metres behind the highway boundary, and once provided shall be so maintained in perpetuity. This was to reduce the possibility of the leachurous material being deposited in the highway, as in loose stones, in the interest of highway safety in accordance with the national planning policy. Was that sort of omitted for a reason, or was it just missed? Was it an error?
I think because we condition 2 and condition sort of 7 have the proposed site plans on the as part of the approved sort of documents. I think it's clear on there with the sort of materials that are being provided for the driveway and turning areas. I'm not sure also you can sort of achieve the full 10 metres behind the highways boundary for the driveways and sort of turning areas. I know there's a landscaping condition as well, so we can sort of show that it's sort of, but if it is something that you wish to add, then that can be done.
I mean, highways seem to be fairly specific in their request for that, so I just wondered what was the background behind it. Okay, thank you very much. Officers, do you have any questions of the officer? No, sorry, members, do we have any questions of the officer? I can't see any hands up. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. We have 4 speakers this evening on this application. The first one is Councillor Carl Powell, who's from Somerby Parish Council. You could bring Mr. Councillor Powell forward. Good evening, Councillor Powell.
Good evening, Chair.
Good evening.
We
We can't see you, but we can certainly hear you. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
I'm Carl Powell. I'm the chair of Somerby Parish Council.
Yeah.
In 2017, the Parish Council opposed the outline application here on grounds of the unsuitability of Church Lane for access and traffic impact on existing residents. However, since then, we have the local plan, the emerging neighbourhood plan, and as we read their policies, particularly SS3 in the Melton plan and emerging HR4 in the neighbourhood plan, we can no longer oppose on those grounds, so we support the application. In size, housing mix and its brownfield location, the proposal is of a kind preferred by residents during consultation for the neighbourhood plan. We still think traffic impact will be adverse and significant on existing residents, and conditions are necessary to mitigate it. We support all the conditions proposed by the case officer. We wish to make 2 points and request 1 further condition. First point, condition 9, construction traffic management plan. It is essential for the safety and amenity of existing residents that construction traffic doesn't use Church Lane. It's an unsuitable road, as condition 9 puts it. To eventually charge condition 9, construction traffic must use the alternative route from Ouston Road. Second point, concerning the paddocks or rewilded area at the south of the proposal, I noticed they were cut off the map we just saw. These are a positive for wildlife and softening of the development edge, but it isn't clear how they would be managed. It must be understood that this area is part of the site for condition 4 on landscape management. However, the case officer assured me the other day that it is. Third, concerning limits to development, this rewilding area lies outside the neighbourhood plan limits to development, which were correctly drawn to accommodate the outline permission. This full application is 29% larger than at outline, and the emerging neighbourhood plan does not support new development in that initial additional part. Therefore, if you do approve, and we think you should, we request a condition against change of use of the rewilding area, which is described in the design and access statement as an enhanced green area. So we request a condition preventing change from enhanced green area to any private residential use, whether houses or private gardens. We therefore support the proposal subject to that 1 additional condition. I thank you for listening and will do my best if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Do members have any questions of Councillor Powell? No, it looks as if we don't. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. Our second speaker this evening is Barbara Yandell, who's an objector. You're right. Thank you. I can hear you now.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, my name's Barbara Yandell and I live at the bottom end of Church Lane, close to the proposed development, and I'm an objector. Currently, there are 21 dwellings on Church Lane, plus planning permission for a further large house and granny flat, also with access onto Church Lane. Additionally, there's a livery with stabling for 7 horses, all exercised daily by several owners arriving in their own transport from visiting villagers. And there are therefore potentially approximately 40 to 50 vehicles using a very narrow lane with very limited footpath and none at its narrowest point of 2.6 metres. This development will generate another 20 vehicles plus delivery vans, oil tankers, refuse collection lorries, horse boxes. This will add to the excessive congestion already occurring frequently on a daily basis and will create much greater safety risks for pedestrians, children, dog walkers, disabled and elderly. I'd like to draw the committee's attention to the traffic assessment by Edwards and Edwards, the highways and transportation consultants commissioned by the vendor Mark Barnes in February 2017, and in particular the conclusions based on the measurements of Church Lane, which were found to be below safety levels for traffic entering from and exiting into the high street without vehicles mounting the footpath, and this is because of inadequate visibility displays. It also states that Church Lane has inadequate width and radii for vehicles to pass. It seems that Church Lane has never really been fit for purpose and probably would be less so with increased traffic flow. I accept that hitherto farm vehicles had to manage these visibility displays and road width restrictions, but not without occasional damage to property, broken walls and frequent hazard to motorists and pedestrians. These visibility and congestion problems have remained the same despite farm vehicles having been removed. Moreover, this new housing development is likely to attract young families with children and pushchairs walking to and from school daily at rush hour times when the high street is at its most congested and often gridlocked. It's our case that a development of 10 more houses is prejudicial to highway and pedestrian safety unless traffic can be rerouted across the temporary access route from Euston Road.
Yeah.
And finally, I repeat much of what the previous councillor said, is that I ask that residents have the written assurance that building will not go ahead until a landscape management plan will safeguard this rewilded area from future development and include a long-term maintenance schedule. Similarly, that written reassurance can be provided in a construction traffic management plan to include rerouting of the construction traffic and an agreeable timetable for their provision and working hours to avoid unnecessary disruption and unacceptable noise pollution to close neighbours. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions of the speaker? No, I can't see any hands raised. So thank you very much. Oh, mind you, we've got one. Councillor Chandler.
Can you hear me?
Can do.
Jolly good. May I ask the speaker about a maintenance scheme for the rewilding area? Who does she propose finances this and pays for the maintenance? The parish council, the people who live in the houses that are to be built if the application is successful, or who? May I just have an answer to that, please?
The building developer.
Yes, but the building developer he'll walk away once the last house is completed, unless there's somebody puts in place a maintenance scheme. And who's going to pay for that?
I would imagine it's the council then that are responsible for the rewilded area.
The parish council.
I can't answer that question.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that. I don't see any other hands raised, so thank you very much, Barbara Yandel. Right. Well, I think we'll move you now to the attendees list. Thank you. Our third speaker this evening is Richard Cooper, who's the agent.
Hello, Chair.
Hello.
Right.
You
Okay.
have 3 minutes. You know the rules.
Sorry. Good evening, councillors. In 2017, Melton Borough Council granted outline planning permission for the development of this site for 12 houses. Linked to this was the relocation of Southfields Farm, enabling expansion and growth of the farm in a better location away from the village edge. The applicant and landowner, Mr. Barnes, has tried multiple times to sell the land with the benefit of the outline consent prior to relocation of his farm. Unfortunately, the outline approval, and in particular the extent of affordable units triggered by it, has been deemed to be unviable, and each time developers have withdrawn from the deal. This has been particularly frustrating for Mr. Barnes. He has, however, pressed on with the relocation and expansion of the farm, borrowing money secured against the development of this site. This application is made on behalf of Wimbrook Homes and seeks to reduce housing numbers from 12 to 10. The mix of units proposed is compliant with local plan policies. The proposal offers a discounted market home, which will be secured through proposed Section 106 agreement. It features 3 much needed bungalows, making the development suitable for those wishing to downsize and remain in this popular and sustainable village. Financial contributions to education have significantly increased in line with current policy from the previous outline approval. The design has been developed and refined in detailed consultation with your planning officers. It proposes a courtyard style development suited to the edge of village location and is complementary to the site's former farming heritage. The use of local stone is mixed with brickwork and timber cladding to create variety and local distinctiveness. A series of stone boundary walls defines residential boundaries and lines the footpath routes which are retained through the development site. Access along Church Lane was approved at outline stage and until recently was heavily used by large agricultural vehicles. You should take into account this former use, the reduction in intensity generated by this reduced scheme, along with the provision of a new turning head at the bottom of the lane and parking provided for church users, all as positive elements of the proposal. Agreement has been reached between the landowner and the developer to use Alston Lane, as already been stated. This application concludes the master plan for the farm relocation set out in 2017. The officer's report carefully outlines all matters for consideration. There are no technical objections. This is a positive and thoughtfully designed application. I urge you to follow officer's advice and approve this application tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do members have any questions? Councillor Brown.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, Richard, how are you?
Hello.
Just one in relation to the rewilding area. If we were minded to condition anything on that, does that cause a problem to the viability of the scheme?
I think in answer to the question, we're not. There's no proposal that area is handed over to the parish council. That's I don't think that would be well received. The intention of those 2 paddock, the rewilding, is that it's offered to the purchasers of plot 8 and 9. Those are the 2 larger properties, but to allay concerns, the residential curtilage of those 2 properties are defined on the layout, which is before you for approval. So the answer to your question, I think, is that the maintenance of those 2 areas would fall to those 2 plot owners. That's the developer's intention.
And just to follow on, Chair, just
Yes.
keeping on that line, is there any reason why you haven't considered the whole scheme contributing to such as a management company managed by the community who live in those houses?
Yeah, this is usually the case. There are some shared green areas around the turning area, and it's common that there is a legal agreement when the plots are sold that each occupier contributes towards the management of those shared spaces. That's a common sort of development setup.
Sorry, I think you probably made I'm not made myself clear. What I meant was, is there any reason why you haven't come to that sort of arrangement for the rewilding area, i.e. that makes it more likely that it will be sustained and less of a burden on just two households? That's what my point is.
I don't follow the line of the question that
Right.
one
So
would
on
be
most-
more, well, the one would be more preferable than the other, really.
Yeah, so a management company might be more preferable, i.e. it divides the cost amongst more people rather than just a couple, and more likely to actually be maintained rather than just.
I think, I think that would be the desirability of the two larger properties with a protected outlook is what the developer was after here. We accept that those gardens shouldn't be expanded into that area, and we'd be happy with a condition to preclude that. But
Okay.
I can't define
That's
who's
okay.
going to.
That's fine. You've answered me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Councillor Holmes, you have a question?
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, now I can. Yeah, I think you were saying that the development would actually, the lorries, etc., would be going up the Euston Road. Is that right? Not right? But obviously couldn't, because I don't know. Does Councillor Barnes not councillor? He was a councillor. Mark Barnes doesn't own the land, does he? On the Euston Road, does he? To get to the site, is that right?
Yes. So Mark Barnes owns the road and currently owns the site. So there's an agreement between him and the developer to give construction route from Euston Road all the way to the site for the duration of the construction. And following that track will be dismantled.
But because he doesn't own that, does he?
He does. Yes, he does. That's how he serves the farm, the relocated farm.
I meant
That's
from the
farm
road.
access.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. You still have your hand raised, Councillor Holmes, right?
I haven't.
No, you haven't now. It's gone down. It must be a delay in time. Thank you. We have no further hands raised. So thank you very much, Richard Cooper. Thank you. Our last speaker this evening on this item is Councillor Higgins, who's the ward councillor.
Okay, first time I've done it this way before, so you can all hear me.
We can. Well, I can.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I'm going to talk about it. One, how this application's come about, but also, I think you've heard from the objectors as well of where their concerns are, and I think you've explored a large part of that. So from the objector side is when the initial application came about for 12 housing, objectors have asked me to try and reduce the number of houses, which we've got down from 12 to 10. So from the objector side is, I think that's probably a reasonable amount. From the applicant side, I don't think they can get it down any further other than viability issues. The other main part is, and I think Mrs. Jandel certainly said this, is fire service vehicles. There is concern about that, and we did get a response back from the fire service in the pack, which I'd like officers to explain to you when you go to debate. Another part was the construction traffic to go off Euston Road, which and the applicant did listen to that, and I believe that's secured. But we can't be in any doubt that the traffic will be adverse than it is now with how it is. There will be traffic on there. It isn't the best lane, but I think as the officer said, and I did speak to LCC Highways, they did prefer it from Church Lane than Euston Road themselves, and I think the officers will probably explain that as well. I think it's important that we don't have this real wilding area going into anything more of gardens, and I think if you can get that condition, I would go for that. Just talking from the applicant side is the applicant came to me to discuss how we could improve it, and after listening from neighbours' concerns, you'll see that in that we've got an affordable house. The applicant doesn't need to put that in, and we did have a shake on that hand. I said, if you are going to put some houses on there, then I would like an affordable house. and we've got that, and it's, you know, and that's great. I understand that Euston Road, the applicant, doesn't have land control on that, as I have been told by the applicant. The housing mix, I think, is reasonable. If you want to reject this to ask for less housing, it could mean only executive homes. And the highways have raised various concerns with Euston Road, which I mentioned earlier. The only other thing which the applicant did raise to me in the consultation period is the financial contributions to schools.
Sure.
They're very happy, thank you. They're very happy that we've secured money through this application to Somerby School, which is great. But just going on the old point, we've closed Leicestershire County Council closed King Edward, and now they're asking more money for secondary education. If we never close King Edward, we wouldn't have this on here, and I think that decision has been tainted with disaster, unfortunately, and now the applicant's going to have to fund more secondary education, which has been a bit of a shame there. We could have used that for the Somerby Village, but hey, Leicestershire County Council are going to get that money. Thank you.
Thank you. You're slightly over, but only by a couple of seconds. So thank you very much. Do we have any questions of Councillor Higgins, members? No, there's no hands raised. So thank you very much, Councillor Higgins. We will see you later, no doubt. Thank you. Officers, do you wish to offer any further information for clarification on this?
I think the Councillor Higgins raised some comments about the fire engine access point. This is covered on page 23, paragraph 5.5.6 of the report, which sort of details the typical width of a fire appliance can achieve access down Church Lane, and that sort of goes into that detail there. Just another point, in my presentation, I think I mentioned there's 2 bungalows, whereas the agent Richard Cooper mentioned there was 3. Just to confirm, there is 3 bungalows.
Right.
So that was just another point. I don't know if Jim wants to add anything further.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on something said right towards the beginning by Parish Councillor Powell. Request for a condition to make sure that the wildlife area remains a wildlife area. And my advice on that would be not to apply such a condition, because it's not necessary, because that would be a change of use. What he was concerned about would be a change of use needing planning permission anyway. So to create a control that says you need to apply when you have to apply anyway doesn't offer any greater security.
Okay, thank you. Right. Do we have any questions of officers at all, based on what you've heard this evening? Oh, Mr. Power, did you want to offer some advice at this point?
I was just going to make the point that Jim's just made. You can't prevent anybody making an application in relation to land in the future. If you wanted something like that, of that nature, I think it would have to probably go in the Section 106 agreement.
Okay. Councillor Steadman?
Sorry, yeah, just to clarify this wildlife area. So if this wildlife area is being allocated to plots 8 and 9, as soon as plots 8 and 9 are built, then there's nothing to stop them from landscaping it. Is that correct?
Mr. Worley or
they would still have to adhere to condition 4, which is the landscape, sort of the overall landscaping plan of the site, which I think, yeah, there's some sort of maintenance schedules in there in that condition. So,
okay.
Yeah,
thank you. Mr. Power, you still have your hand raised.
Sorry, I'm assuming that the wild, if I can call it the wildlife area, that's not within the red line, is it? It's not within the application site. Is that correct?
it is within. Yes, it is within the red. Yeah.
Oh, it is.
It's
right.
part of the outline, part of the site. So.
Right. Presumably, that land is not being sought to be the subject of planning permission for residential use or for garden use, is it?
Yeah, precisely. Bob, which is why it would be a change of use, either immediately or at any time in the future. And the controls that we have through the system would apply in either case.
Okay,
You could
thank
have
you.
something in the section 106, Chair, basically saying that that is not to be used, you know, is not to be used residentially, and not as a garden to any of the plots. So if they own it, then they would be subject to that obligation, and it would be a change of use if they changed it to domestic garden.
Okay, thank you very much. It's going to be a landscaped area for rewilding. Councillor Hewson, do you have a question of officers? You're on mute still.
The
Thank you.
wilding area, who will actually own the land? Will this land go to the plots 8 and 9, or will the ownership of that wilding area be separate?
It's a good question.
I think Mr. Cooper advised earlier it'd be offered to 8 and 9, and that's the most likely route.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Right, is that questions finished of officers? Thank you. Right now, over to you, members, to start the debate. First of all, we have Councillor Posnett. I think I know what you're going to say.
Yes, I do think that they've gone to a lot of detail within the development, and it's on a site, irrespective of where it's situated, that we would normally like to see development on. But as you and I experienced when we went on the site visit, Church Lane is very narrow. It is not the ideal either access or even exit from places. We were ready to leave, and we met a tractor that had to reverse back and park up so that we could get by. In my attempts to park down, to turn round, part of the ground started to subside under the back of my car. So after doing about a 96-point turn, I managed to get myself out. I was able to drive down once the tractor had gone. Unfortunately, you had to reverse all the way down. But as I got 3/4 of the way down, this huge horse lorry appeared. It turned in off the street. How they managed to turn in, I don't know, because of the cars that are parked on both sides of the street, but they did. I then, to be able to get out of the way to allow it access, I then had to pull into a place that said it was a private drive and people were not allowed to turn around in it, but I didn't have any option. You were reversing down to me, the horse wagon's coming in the front of me. So it is very difficult access, but I do think they've gone to a lot of trouble to actually perhaps make it a little safer for residents with the turning point that they've got in, so that residents who live on there, instead of having to reverse out, if that's what they sometimes have to do, could just drive down and turn in the turning point, so that people don't have to reverse out, they can actually drive forwards out. It's not ideal, but I think because people live there, they know the width of the lane, so they're not likely to go down it like boy racers do. That was my only comment. Apart from that, I don't have any problems with the development at all. I think the affordable housing is very generous. They can meet the usual 106 requests, and I think if we have a rewilding area, that would also make it more attractive. But they were my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I remember that day. Councillor Brown.
I think Councillor Faulkner was before me, Councillor
Actually, I've just seen Councillor Faulkner. Yes, Councillor Faulkner, did you want to go first? Sorry, I overlooked you.
Yes, I was actually a point of clarification about handing it up before you moved on. But somebody else might be able to answer it. It's been said that the rewilding area will be offered to plots 8 and 9. What happens if they don't want them? What happens to it then?
That's what conditions 4 is about. So condition 4 asks for how it's going to be maintained in the future. And if 8 and 9 isn't the answer, we'd expect something else that's sustainable.
That's okay. That's great. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Now back to Councillor Brown.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think, basically, this is an application, in my view, that originally, obviously, the village and the parish council objected to. But if we're looking at it, and if we're going to be consistent, or I'm going to be consistent, and I think I've said this at every meeting I've been at, is it's about local policies, national policies, and it's quite clearly laid out in the officer report, is that it does meet that. It's not an ideal site, as Councillor Posnett says, but I was down there. I backed up the whole way up to the road because there was people going in and out of the driveways, etc. But you could either have, in my view, in a site that's not great, 12, or you could have 10 houses, and then to actually get one house that is market discount is of benefit. If we had it fresh, it'd probably be a different story, but we're not. We're dealing with the reality in which we're in. There's no major objections from the highways department. Don't necessarily agree with that personally, but I'm not a technical expert on highways. The highways officers are. I think the parish council and the local councillor, Councillor Higgins, has been quite pragmatic in working with the landowner to try and get something that at least is palatable and acceptable. I think it's a credit there, and especially a credit to Councillor Higgins for doing that and pulling what looks like the community with him. And there's actually, on such a small site, there's actually a contribution to the local primary school. And I've known in the past, certainly speaking with we've had this conversation with myself and Councillor Posnett and Councillor Holmes about, well, that school, it was at one stage becoming unsustainable. The houses might actually make it more sustainable. So I'm looking, there is the negatives, there is the positives that are laid out, but I think we are where we are. And the only thing that I do have a concern, I know the officers are saying, oh, it'll be okay, but is that rewilding area. We've got an opportunity here to put something that might be of a positive environmental impact. I would like to see more of a condition on that, because it could be quite easy that, as Jim may say, oh, well, if they don't take it on, they don't want it, we'll find some other. It might be too late then when somebody's got the property. So I would look to officers to see if they could give us some wording on that, and if they could, I'd be happy to support the application.
Thank you. I have Councillor Holmes next.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't think many people or anybody have said up to now that it is very difficult when you actually have a farm in a village. Incredibly difficult, because you're going to get flies and you're going to get all sorts of things. You're going to get silage smells. You're going to get everything. And to go out of a village and to relocate costs a massive amount of money. And quite frankly, to do that and to actually put these up, you've got to do something, because you can't just afford to actually relocate without anything. And I think that this scheme has been obviously looked at in the best possible way to be able to move out and make a positive impact for the village of Somerby. I totally understand that it is very narrow. I have been up there and been up all sorts of roads there in that village, and it is very narrow in places. Quite agree, but really, I think that I would like to propose this application because it has been something that surely is a positive for the village. They have a farmer around, a dairy farmer. How many of those are there? Very few. But my goodness, this country will need our farmers. And I have pleasure in proposing this application. And I am sure the rewilding area can be somehow looked at in some sort of way that it will be a benefit to everybody. And I quite honestly like those sort of areas, and I hope it will be beneficial. So I'd have pleasure in proposing this application.
Thank you. Well, we know the routine. The next one will need to second it. It'll be Councillor Chandler.
Can you hear me?
We can do.
Jolly good. Yes, I'm quite happy to second this. It is a brownfield site after all. And we're so short of brownfield sites, and everybody says we should be developing brownfield sites, not greenfield ones. So it scores quite heavily in that direction. But I am still concerned about the rewilding area. And we don't seem to know who's going to pick up the tab for this, because, you know, it might not be all that amount of ground, but it costs money to maintain. One of my grandsons today was mowing a paddock for somebody that was all straggly. It had had horses on it all summer, and it was all straggly, but it needed maintaining. And these are the areas people don't realise, I think. And I feel that there should have been a little bit more conversation with either the parish council or whether it can be attached to these two dwellings, because it's got to be. You can't have one of them say, plot 8 say, I'll take mine on, but plot 9 say, no, I don't want it. And this is the concern of mine. I'm right behind developing the 10 dwellings, but I am very concerned about this rewilding area. Who's going to maintain it? Who's going to pay for it? And I didn't get an answer from anybody earlier on when I raised it. But I'm more than happy to go along and second the application, but I do have queries over this rewilding area. I don't know whether Councillor Holmes is willing to put a caveat in here over that. Because I think it does need somebody to sort it out at this stage. It's no good leaving it, because if things get left, they get left and they drag on and they drag on and they drag on. And I think this has got to be sorted.
Thank you. Point taken. I'll ask Councillor Holmes if she's willing to include something, and we can ask officers for wording. Councillor Holmes, I can't hear you.
You keep putting me off, so I can't.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and yes, I would think that the officers surely can condition this somehow. I actually like the idea of an area, but I totally go along with the seconder. You don't want a mess of an area. You want it to be a nice area, and so definitely I would like it included in that the talks with the applicant and the officers are vitally important to get this right, I feel. Is that all right for the seconder? I can't hear. The seconder's gone now.
That's fine.
Yes,
Thank
right.
you. Mr. Powder, do you want to offer some legal advice? I can see your hand is raised.
Can I offer some technical advice first? I don't know if people know, but if you're using a laptop, if you press the space bar, it automatically allows you to speak. And when you take your finger off,
right.
Space bar.
Well done, you. Thank you for that.
iPad.
On the other issue of this rewilded area, I think members need to say what it is they want. I mean, I think condition 4 simply requires it to be landscaped, which is fine, but of course gardens are landscaped as well often, and I get the impression that members do not want this to be a garden or used as a garden or in any way domestically. what condition 4 doesn't do is it doesn't specify any requirement for ongoing management and maintenance. I don't even know whether we consider that that would be required, but I got the impression some members thought it was. I mean, if this was sort of on-site open space, you would have a requirement typically for a management scheme to be submitted, which included ongoing maintenance, and often the cost of that is met by all the dwellings. But I get the impression that this site maybe, because of its location, only benefits a couple of the plots. I don't know. I don't think I know enough about the juxtaposition of this wildlife site and the plots to offer a view. But certainly you could have something in the 106 that made it absolutely clear that this site was not to be used residentially or as a residential garden, and was to remain, was to be retained for this purpose.
Could I just come in? I've sort of listened to the conversation. I just wonder if some wording could be added to condition 4, sort of in the lines of creating a rewilding site to the south of the developments next to plots 8 and 9, and for this to be a rewilding site in perpetuity. So would that help?
Yeah, something like that's not.
Yeah, I think that's very good.
Maintenance. Well,
Going to pay for it.
well, we would invite them to tell us.
Yeah, that's what they have to come back and tell us how they're going to do it. But if everyone's very, very keen on that, and it forms a major part of the development, and people are concerned, perhaps that is the way out.
Chairman, sorry to butt in, Chairman, but
Yes,
I'm just wondering if we should ask for a scheme for, the ongoing management and maintenance of this plot. Details, how it is to be looked after in the future.
Yes, but I think the words in perpetuity are sort of very relevant. Then that will offer some protection at least, I would think. Councillor Chandler, you still have your hand raised. Did you want to? Okay, thank you. Councillor Hewson, you've had your hand raised for quite a while. Sorry, it's taken a while to get round to you. There we go.
Can you hear me?
We can do.
Just on this Wilding plot, though, if we've said the parish council would take on this plot, is this plot going to be accessible to general public, or is there an access from other if only plot 8 and 9 can access the land, how is it going to be maintained by somebody else? Thank you.
Do officers want to answer that, or is that just a? I don't really think they can get access to it because of where it is, to be honest. Looking at the plans.
It does look like there's an access between plot 8 and plot 9, sort of at the end of the site, just in front of plot 8's parking, indicated on the site plan through there.
Okay. Councillor Steadman.
Yes, just one point actually. Firstly, a farm isn't classed as a brownfield site; they're actually classed as greenfield sites. I'm quite happy to support the move to permit this application. There is one thing though that occurred to me listening to all the conversations across the councillors and everything is the access on Church Lane, and in particular what cropped up quite a bit was the livery stables. Would it be pertinent for either the parish council or the borough council to look at the original conditions associated with this livery stable to see if there is anything that can be done negotiation wise or condition wise to make it easier on the current residents?
Okay, thank you. Is that something that Mr. Worley would like to respond to?
We can look into that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Steadman, you still have your hand raised. Thank you. Right, has everybody contributed who wants to? Thank you very much. Right, so we have a proposal to permit And with the further enhancement of condition 4, and that was to deal with, I don't remember the exact wordings, I think it was to create a rewilding site to the south of the site in perpetuity, and also a maintenance plan going forward. Am I correct?
That's what I took from it as well.
Okay,
Chair.
thank you very much. Thank you for that.
That might be an extra condition as opposed to, it could be an extra condition as well.
Yes, a further condition to provide a sort of landscape maintenance plan going forward, maintenance agreement going forward. Thank you. So if everybody's in favour of that, we'll go to the vote now. Councillor Brown, are you for, against, or abstain?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Chandler?
Mute.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Faulkner?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Glancy, for. Councillor Hewson?
For.
Councillor Holmes?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Posnett?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Smedley?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Steadman?
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Wood?
For.
That is unanimous, and thank you very much, everybody. So the application is permitted with the 2 additions to the conditions. Thank you very much, everybody. Would we like to call Councillor Higgins? I'll bring Councillor Higgins back in, please.
I'm just bringing him back through now, Councillor Glancy.
Thank you. I can see. And the next item is 3.3, 20/00433 out. Proposed apartment block to create 15 apartments, 66 Dolby Road, Melton Mowbray. Officers to address the committee. I presume it is good.
Jim.
Mr. Worley. Sorry.
Well, Andrew's been all day delivering leaflets.
Oh, well, thank you very much, because I got mine today. We're going to have a presentation up, I think.
I'm looking, I'm just fetching it back. There you go. That should be there.
There we go.
I'll just switch to the appropriate part.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sorry, there's a little bit to update on this one, so bear with me. As you're aware, this is an outline application, and that'll become very important later, because a lot of the comments we received and that you will hear are taking their information from the indicative plan as if it's, you know, the finished product, and there's certain dangers with that within outline applications, as we've all learnt over many years. The only matter that is for consideration tonight is therefore the principle of it being 15 apartments and 3-storey, and the point of access. It's considered to be locationally appropriate, and particularly with that limited understanding about design, layout, and so on and so on, in the context of the surrounding area, particularly the variety of the surrounding area, and as we said, particularly because of the building immediately to the north, we consider a building of that kind of scale can be accommodated within a site, within this site. The updates are that a bat survey has now been received confirming the presence of brown long-eared bats but we're awaiting comments from County Ecology about what conditions or requirements relate to that. So if you were to grant approval on this tonight, we would like the provision to be able to plug in whatever comes from that exercise of consulting with the county ecologist. We received today a petition of 38 residents from Dovedale Close and Dolby Road in objection to the application. And the grounds of objection are rather like the letters received already, that the visual impact and density is out of character with the area. The area has large detached houses in generous plots more generally, and this is much more dense. That the development will overshadow the adjacent properties and cause overlooking. That the development has no garden area and parking will fill the full plot to capacity. That the access will cause noise, environmental issues and a backlog of vehicles onto Dolby Road. And that 27 more vehicles entering Dolby Road would be a hazard. Dolby Road, of course, being very busy at the moment because of it being a main road and access in the immediate area to schools, nursery, a convent and a church. We've also heard back from the local flood authority, not quite giving it a clean bill of health at this stage because the proposals for drainage is to link into the public sewer and they're requesting that that approach is endorsed by Severn Trent before giving it their final blessing. Yeah, I'm pleased to say that's all of the updates. I'll just flip through the slides so you can see the indicative, illustrative, I'll put on this slide, drawings that people have been commenting on. And that last one is quite helpful in terms of reflecting the scale of the buildings either side. I'll turn that off now.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, members? Nope, I can't see any hands raised. Thank you very much. We have 3 speakers this evening, one last minute, which I'm quite willing to hear. The first one is Karen Matthews, who is an objector. We'd like to bring Karen forward, please. Hello, Karen, you're on mute.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry about that,
We
everybody.
can hear you now.
Good.
Right.
Good evening, everybody.
3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of most residents of properties at New Dorian Lodge, 56 to 64 Dolby Road. In principle, New Dorian Lodge would welcome an appropriate proposal to provide accommodation that would fit within the existing built environment, noting that the majority of properties are large, mature houses, as well as a convent, church, school, and our own high-quality range of apartments and houses. The existing property at 66 Dolby Road has been allowed to decay into wreck and ruin, an eyesore to the local community and an environmental catastrophe. The proposal submitted is clearly designed to maximise profit by squeezing as many homes as possible into a small area with complete disregard to the resulting impact on the immediate neighbourhood, particularly with regard to visual impact, privacy and safety. We would strongly dispute statements in paragraphs 4.3.1 and 4.4.1 relating to policy D1 in the Planning Committee document. In all respects, this is not a high quality design. There are windows facing a brick wall, there is no landscaping, and the building is not comparable to New Dorian Lodge. The garden of 64 Dolby Road and the frequently used courtyard of New Dorian Lodge will be overlooked, so there will be loss of privacy. Dwellings are very close to boundary lines, making external maintenance difficult without encroaching onto New Dorian Lodge. We would strongly object to any windows that directly overlook New Dorian Lodge. Loss of privacy for nearby properties is a major concern. The height of the proposed block is similar to New Dorian Lodge, but the use of gables to the front results in an apparent mass that is much greater and which will be extremely overbearing. It will totally dwarf 68 Dolby Road. We feel that the development should be reduced to 2 stories in height and 1 flat in depth to reduce the density on the site and prevent overdevelopment of the land. The proposed development completely fills the site, leaving almost no soft landscaping, which again is out of keeping with the neighbourhood. We are concerned that the car park at the rear of the block will lead to noise and disturbance resulting from use, given the number of parking spaces to be provided. The number of vehicles in such a confined area, along with the lack of any green spaces and landscaped areas, will also result in environmental pollution. An additional number of cars turning in and out of the same entrance off Dalby Road will exacerbate congestion on an already busy road. The pavement in front of 66 Dalby Road is narrow and used by children walking to and from school on a daily basis. Adding extra traffic will make this less safe. A significant reduction in housing density is required, and an alternative proportionate design solution that is in keeping with the neighbourhood should be presented. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions of Karen Matthews, members? No, there's no questions for you, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker this evening is Laura McMullen, who's the agent.
Hi, everybody.
Good evening. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay.
We are the agents acting on behalf of our client Practice Care. I'd just like to note that Practice Care are a charitable organisation who focus on supporting individuals with mental health, autism, learning disabilities and dementia. Any funds raised by the development will be reinvested in the charity to continue their work in supporting the community and also in research and innovation projects. They also have a local presence in the area and work alongside the County Council to provide care and support. Practice Care have owned the site for over 10 years and are now looking to develop their asset. In order to develop the site, it is necessary to demolish the existing bungalow, which has remained redundant since Practice Care took ownership of the site. The bungalow is now in very poor condition and doesn't provide any positive relationship to the street scene or neighbouring properties. The site is mainly overgrown and Harris fencing has been installed to the perimeter in order to keep it secure. The proposals seek permission 15 new apartments. These will be a mix of 10 one-bed and 5 two-bed accommodation, which will provide much needed smaller, affordable accommodation for the local community. The accommodation is arranged over 3 floors, with the top floor being partially within the roof space. As this application is an outline application, no details have been given in regards to elevation treatment or the building. However, if granted, we respect the scale and massing of the properties within the street scene, in particular, the Victorian and older properties within the street scene, and we intend to use a palette of materials sympathetic to the existing properties within Burton Dalby Road. The block of accommodation is placed approximately 9.5 metres from the edge of Dalby Road, which puts in line with the neighbouring block of apartments and the property at number 68 Dalby Road. As you can see in the street scene drawings, the height of the roof has been reduced along the boundary adjacent to number 68 in order to respect the roof line of the existing property. We've also mirrored the angle of the existing roof on the property at 68 to provide gables which respect the character of the area and continue the quality of the street scene. 27 parking spaces have been allocated on the site, and also dedicated bin storage areas have been identified on the block plan. This is 7 more additional parking spaces than will be required to meet the highway policy. It is also proposed to change to the dual access to a single access from Dalby Road in order to give additional parking within the site and greater visibility from a single entrance and exit point. The property has been designed to reflect the scale of the neighbouring buildings and has been split into 3 main blocks of accommodation in order to break up the view from the street scene and avoid an unattractive flat elevation, which is not a traditional characteristic of the street scene. If granted, we would look to work closely with the local authority in order to produce a building of high quality that will add value to the street scene and be a huge improvement from the current use site.
30 seconds, Chair.
Thank you. We engaged initially with the council with pre-application advice and followed up with this outline application, and we continue to work closely with the council in order to achieve an outstanding scheme. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councillor Holmes.
Unmute. Yes, do you, if I could ask, is it Laura?
Yeah.
If I could ask you, is this the sort of work that you do? You were saying the sort of people that would be using this, which is most interesting, the people who would be moving into these 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, and so do you design these type of properties? or is this a one-off for you?
No, this is our main source of work.
Oh, it's a main source of work. So, oh, I was concerned looking at it because it seems that there's nothing environmentally friendly about it for the residents. That was all.
This is purely an application for the principle of a dwelling and scale and access.
Yes, but it also says a 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom, and they're going to be very tight together. There's not going to be recreation areas and things like that. So it seems that so very sad. That's all.
Yeah, we could look at further landscaping plans with the council as part of a detailed application if required.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm really on the same theme here. I got through lockdown by getting outside and listening to the birds. There seems to be nothing in this application where people who aren't, and it has been said, probably have got medical deficiencies, and they're not going to be able to get outside and enjoy open life. And it's all right saying, oh, it'll come in the reserve matter application, but surely we need to know a little bit more at outline of just what is being provided to give these people a lift. The 1947 Town and Country Planning Act was all about getting improved housing and everybody having a garden. I mean, there were big gardens in the 1950s. I mean, all the council properties all had long gardens. But I mean, now we seem to be going to concrete and asphalt. And I'm very unhappy with this aspect of what people are putting forward. And I would like to think that when it comes back to reserve matters, we've got some green areas and somewhere where people can go out and sit and enjoy the sunshine and even the wind on a windy day and listen to the birds. There's so much going for us. But, you know, to me, reading this report, there's absolutely nothing in that's going to be therapeutic. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Steadman.
Yeah, can I just clarify a point on Mrs. McCullen's speech? She said they are a charitable organisation for people with mental health and autism. Can I just, a little bit of confusion there. So we have 15 flats, but these aren't actually flats being built for people with mental health and autism. It's being built to finance the charity. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. It's one of the assets of the charity. So they're looking to develop the asset in order to bring more funds back into the charity. And with regards to the landscaping scheme, obviously, we've not applied for landscaping as part of the application. So we work with the council in order to achieve a better landscaping scheme required. And obviously, if highways were willing to reduce the amount of vehicles required, etc., we could look to introduce landscaping. And also, you know, the town park is probably within 1,000 metres of the site, which is obviously accessible.
Thank you for that. That's the question I was going to ask, Councillor Steadman, so you saved me having to ask. Or during your sort of speech, Laura, you mentioned about bin storage. Now, I seem to recall somebody mentioned it was going to be on the front of the development. I know this is just outline and we're not defining it yet at the moment, but I seem to mention someone mentioned it's going to be on the front of the property on Dalby Road, the bin storage. Am I correct?
Yeah, currently it's located on the front. It would be housed within you know, a brick building or a timber building to hide it from the road. It'd just be most easy accessible for obviously bin lorries and residents to take the bins out onto the main road, being at the front of the property.
Right, so in actual fact, we're going to have 15, actually no, 30 bins out on Dalby Road from that one particular.
2 euro bins.
Pardon?
It'd be 2 euro bins.
Oh, so right, big bins.
Yeah, not single bins for per apartment. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brown, you have your hand raised.
Thank you. Laura, is there, are you basically, to me, it's a very high density site, what you're trying to put in here, flats, cars, etc. I presume you're doing that because you need to maximize as much money out of it as possible for your client. And is there any leeway in which you could design a better scheme with less density, because I know you say 27 cars, but you know, you're probably talking 2 or 3 cars per unit. Let's be realistic about it. I can see that causing problems. And also looking at I'm following off from Councillor Clancy, the bin store area. If you're talking, did I hear you right, €2 bins per property?
No, sorry, €2 bins for the whole site. So there's not a requirement.
Is that enough for
Yeah.
15 flats?
Yeah, so there's not a requirement to have a single bin for recycling and
No, you know,
waste per apartment.
if it come in there, it's like €2 bins isn't that big for a fortnight's rubbish or recycling.
It's the large ones, like where the top folds back.
Yeah, I understand them. I have them at work. I work in the same sort of sector as your clients, so I do understand it. It's just for the size of the building. We would be using much
That's the requirement in the highways documents for the size apartments.
It might be
the large requirement. We can accommodate that.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, right, that's fine.
Thank you. I think that's all the questions. Thank you. If you'd like to put your hand down, Councillor Brown. Thank you. Right, thank you very much, Laura. We'll probably move you back now to the attendees. Thank you. Do officers have any? No, I've got one more speaker, haven't we? Sorry, I've just seen on my list. The final speaker is Ward Councillor, Councillor Pearson.
I'm just bringing Councillor Pearson forward now.
Thank you.
Hello, how are you?
Hello.
Thank you, Chair.
Welcome. We can't
I hope you did get my.
see you, but we can hear you.
Good. I hope you got me early, because I did ask to be on this a long time ago, so I'm not sure. I'm sure it wasn't late, but I did ask. Anyway, I'll move on.
You're here now.
Good. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you very much. Just quickly.
You have 3 minutes.
I think some really good presentations, and I just would like to make the point. I've had lots of residents contact me. They're not saying no, to be truthful. They're saying they're quite happy with the development. It is the style and the quality, and as already pointed out, the density that is the issue. I guess I'll come from a different point of view regarding the area and also Melton as a town. And so I'd like to add the following. I mean, does the development complement the neighbourhood? We need to ask that question. Does it suit the needs of the people who reside in the property? And she said that. So 1 or 2, we've already mentioned already, parking, open space, weedy annual washing, or whatever. But I think that's important. Does it match aesthetically to the overall tone of the area and the town? And I think that's very important, that we've got a lovely town here, and buildings need to be to fit, I guess, and look good. Will it inspire people? Will it make people excited when you walk past? Architecture is important. Will it strengthen the community or fragment it? We have to be very careful with high density, because it can affect how residents in the community feel about things. And again, it's already mentioned, we need to be very careful about the pressures on services and the community spirit and togetherness, how we bring the community together. Again, I emphasise, none of the residents to me have said we don't want a development, but it's the type of development, and I think that's very important. Finally, you know, we've got a great town, we've got heritage, it's a market town, and from a point of view, a lot of the people were saying it's keeping that spirit, keeping that image, and keeping the town. So it's really a great place to live, and we have space, we have outdoor, we have areas for people to enjoy, and that was the underlining approach from a lot of the residents spoke to me and also sent emails. So that's my point of view, that I guess they're not saying no to a development. What they're saying is the type of development, that it suits what we want in Melton. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions of Councillor Pearson? Just one. Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Pearson. I thought you spoke very well. So as you've been clearly talking to 2 residents there, are you saying that subject to whatever decision we do here, you would like to be involved with with working with the applicant and residents to try and get that design, because I thought you spoke very powerfully about architecture and everything else. Is that what you're asking the committee?
Yes, Lee. Yeah, definitely. I think I've been quite impressed with the residents because they've not been the term NIMBYs. They're saying we understand exactly that there is something. The whole house there is not very. I drive there quite regular. I know the place. I just feel that we need to, any development, let's make it really architecturally pleasant. It fits into what we want in Melton, and that's exactly the feedback. So I'd like to be involved if that's possible. But the overall feedback is, again, it's not no, it's a real make the development work for the area. Because that's I said before, there's some lovely properties down there when you drive down the road. There's units opposite, let's be honest. There's units already there on the opposite, and they're reasonably tasteful. So it's keeping that sort of look, aesthetically making it a place you want to drive down, you want to walk to, you want to walk past.
Thank you. Thank you. That answers my question, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you. Am I muted? Am I muted?
No, you're
I'm not.
here.
No, that's all right then. I think, how's your shoulder, by the way? Is it all right, or is it getting better?
Oh, no, it's not. I had a bad day today, would you believe, Elaine?
Oh dear.
It's very sore.
Oh dear.
I've had to take painkillers, so I'm a bit spaced out. So.
Oh
I'm
right.
doing all right.
Righto. What about the density of this? Have residents said about the density of this? Because it is a very busy road, and you'll know that very well.
Yeah.
Have they had concerns about the density?
Yeah.
Of this application.
I think if we're honest, and I think we need to do a bit of research on this, we have to be very careful with density. If we just look at the coronavirus, they will tell you, the scientists, that it's not spread in open spaces, it's where people are close together and they're all packed together. So wherever you go in the world where there's high density, there isn't necessarily good living. So we have to be sensible about that. So there is an issue about density. And I think Councillor Brown mentioned it as well. It's no good having car parks for 23 flats, 23 car parks, because they've got 2 rooms, some of them, and they've got visitors. So we're going to put them. So density is an issue wherever we go. So it was a concern, Elaine, that Councillor Holmes, sorry, that it was. And as you're aware, density does put pressure on services. It does put pressure on time. It can cause problems. One of the other issues that we have, those that we all know, the road, Ankill, the bend there, it's not the best of roads to drive for visually coming into the town when you go around the bend, particularly if the odd people a few miles over the speed limit. But generally, yes, you're quite right. Density is a concern.
Thank you.
Thank you. I can't see any more hands raised, Councillor Pearson. So thank you very much for coming along this evening.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Yeah,
and I do apologise for the mix-up with your attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Do officers have anything further to add following the speakers?
Yeah, please, if I may.
Yeah.
And apologies to Councillor Pearson, because he did ask me to add him to the list, and I forgot.
Not to worry.
We didn't have him. Just concerned about where the debate is pitched in terms of this being an outline application. So listening to the objector speaking at the beginning, it was very much she was reflecting on the plans, the illustrative that have been submitted, and similarly, Councillor Pearson's questions in his speech there are questions to which there is no answer at the moment because it's an outline application. We have to deal with it from what we do know, and that level of information is limited. We can draw certain assumptions from it. We know that it's 15. We know that it's 3-storey, and from that you can start making assumptions about the amount of car parking and the height. But we don't know about design and which ways windows will face, and whether bins will be sited, as Mrs. McMullen said. So I would encourage members, just to bear in mind that we're dealing with an outline application. It's so tempting, isn't it, to go into these detailed matters of design and layout, especially when you've been shown a picture, but the picture's not really part of the application, if the truth be told.
Well, thank you very much for that guidance. It's very much appreciated. Members, do you have any questions of officers? We have one hand raised, which is Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So many times when we have outline, and I have to say this to Mr. Worley, he will say to us, but you didn't mention that outline when we come to full applications. So that is why I think we have got to say these various things, ask these various questions, because we have been caught out so many times when we come to a full application that we haven't asked those questions. And it surely, if we're at outline, we want to get it right, don't we? That was all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins, you're next.
So like you say, is on outline. Yeah, I think it's okay. It's great. You know, it needs redeveloping. You know, let's move forward with that. And as very well put by Councillor Holmes, is we've got to ask those questions, and we've got to say where our concerns are and just be honest. And I thought Councillor Pearson spoke really well on that, and was putting forward the residents' concerns very ably as well. And then, like the objectors were saying, I think, as Councillor Pearson said, it isn't a no. No one's saying no, but what they're saying is, come on, let's just make this nicer. And so we've got two balances here. Are we going to do high density housing where it's going to have either 15 households in? And I do get that you can go to the town park, which is 1,000 meters away. There's the swimming pool, the gym, there's the BP station, there's Aldi just around the corner, the Spa down the road, there's St Francis, Swallowdale. It's got all the amenities. So it's a great location. And yes, we also do need 1-bedroom houses somewhere. But I think when you look at that street scene and the trees and some of the old hunting lodges and the houses that followed those hunting lodges, we could make this really remarkable, and the design really remarkable. And I was concerned with the answer about the bins, and I think, as Councillor Brown said, you're going to need more bins than that. As they said in Jaws, you're going to need a bigger boat. You're going to need a bigger bin. Come on. Yeah, I know. Sorry, we're going to have to get this right. And yeah, visitors car parking. It could. Where are they all going to go? And I think, as Councillor Chandler said, you know, some kind of outdoor space. I've just been to a part of the world. They're knocking down some of these old 60s buildings and building fantastic new architecture where you overlook the landscape. And I basically was looking at where the local authority had won some in bloom parts, and they've got some wonderful things of architecture that they've done. So I think, yes, I'm going to go with it, but I think it's a big caveat that I don't like this design. I think it's horrid. I think it's unimaginative. It's just terrible, really. So, but it's outlined. I'm not being asked to think about that, as Mr. Worley said. So listen to what we're saying, and yeah, I think members are going to come at it probably far stronger than me, Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to start the debate now that Councillor Higgins has started the debate? Wish to contribute? Councillor Faulkner.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just want a little bit of clarification. So we're if we allow this to go ahead as it is, we are actually agreeing not just to the outline planning permission for the site, it's an outline planning permission for 15 apartments, isn't it?
Yes.
It is.
And story principle.
Yeah, I've got reservations, and I'll have to listen to some debate on that one then. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Sorry I'm being very vocal about this, but I am very disappointed that we're putting 15 houses, and we know, like Councillor Pearson said, we are in very, very dangerous times. We can't get away from that, and we cannot put people as close together. You imagine putting them really close together, and I honestly feel that I cannot go for this application as it stands. Don't have a problem with a few one-bed apartments, think that would be better if there were two, but I can't go with it at this time, because I think it's got to be rethought and half as big. I think then you are going to get something that people will actually be able to have fresh air, they'll be able to have decent space, and that is so important. And the final thing, of course, the design has to be so much better. It's vitally important, but I cannot go with this as it stands. Whether you want me to refuse this application, I'm quite happy to do so, or you want to ask other people to debate for it first. But I at this time, I cannot go with this application. I would go for a refusal because of the density and all the things that we've already said. I just can't, the danger to the road, all sorts of things which I think have not been really thought out well enough. Thank you.
So is that a proposal to refuse, Councillor Holmes, or are you willing to listen to the rest of the debate?
No, it is. In my eyes, it is the wrong size, and the way it's done, it's in the wrong place. And I just don't think at this, it's just, there's so many things that aren't right for it, because it's not the right area, because I think it's a dangerous road, and to have people tight in like that, it can't be right. It can't be right. We're in a rural community here, and it just can't be right. And I'd have to refuse this application. I'm quite happy to do so. Yeah.
Thank you. I think I'm going to jump in here, so I do apologise to Councillor Brown. But when I did the site visit, we had a really good look around here. And whilst I appreciate we need smaller homes, but not of this calibre, if we have learnt anything from the present coronavirus pandemic, is that residents and apartments need outside space.
Yeah.
This is not an inner city. Melton Mowbray is quite unique. We've got some wonderful buildings, and I really don't think this particular development of this intensification development is going to fit very well in with Derby Road. I can't support the principle of 15 apartments on this site. Recommend the applicant reduces the density, provides sufficient car parking for residents and visitors, plus much needed landscaped areas suitable for residents to use. If they took a look next door at Dorian Lodge Apartments, which is adjacent to the proposed site, they have an abundance of open space, which I would encourage the applicant to mirror.
Exactly.
In my view, it is over intensification and fails to meet local plan policies D1, in that it's unsympathetic for the character of the area, and there's no room for landscaping with 15 and the relative car parking it needs. And also it sort of goes against EN1, which is unacceptable adverse impact upon an area's sense of place. It just doesn't fit very well, so I'm afraid I would willingly second the refusal. So next one is Councillor Brown.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I totally agree with everything you've said there, Councillor Clancy. I have no issue with this site being redeveloped. I just think the density of housing is far too great for it. And I think it's opportunistic to go in and get 15 and try and maximise it out. But if we've learned anything about the current pandemic that we have, in the likes of Leicester, where I'm dealing with people who are in high density estates who can't get out, where the virus is contracting, what are we learning? The other thing is the work that this council is doing through yourself, Chair, to try and get good, well designed property. The other issue as well is if we're looking at, and let's not beat about the bush, the car parking will be an issue, etc. What I would suggest is that the applicant goes away, like we said earlier on tonight, do what Councillor Higgins did up in Somerby, speaks with the local residents, speaks with the ward councillors, has a proper discussion with the planning officers, and comes back with something that's actually good, sustainable development that meets the needs of the local community. And yes, we do need one-bed houses, but we could maybe go with some bigger to make the site sustainable, etc., with less units, with a bit more green space, and actually think about the environmental impact. I think I'm actually disappointed that somebody would say, I'll have 2 euro bins to fill 15 flats. Well, let's look at the issue you have with rodents, the issue that'll come in. You know, let's be honest about it. Is that going to be any better for the health and well-being of the residents who live there? It's not. And what will happen is people that live there for a short period of time want to sell up and then want to move on, and it won't become sustainable. So for that reason, I fully support everything that Councillor Holmes and everything you said, Councillor Clancy, as a chair. I feel quite strongly about this one.
Thank you. Councillor Steadman.
Thank you, Chair. I would have to say, I think Councillor Brown's probably covered everything I was about to say. I would support the refusal of this application at this moment in time on D1 and EN1. Could I also say, though, while I've got the floor, perhaps some of the residents of Dorrian Court would like to invite the applicant round to look at their setup and use that as perhaps as a model. Why not?
Which
Thank
is
you,
why
Chair.
I mentioned it. Thank you. Mr. Worley, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, apologies in advance, Margaret. I just want to pick up your, I think it was your inclusion of the reference to EN1.
Yes.
It was. Wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it runs very firmly about the landscape and countryside.
Mm.
And I don't think we can really translate that into a town, I'm afraid.
Oh, that's a shame, because I think this town deserves landscaping as well, doesn't it? But yeah.
It's about rolling hills, trees and hedges, those.
Not necessarily.
Well,
can I just say, sorry, Mr. Worley, can I just say that area there was actually a little farm. When my father went to school at the convent, it was a farm. And since then it was being sold off. But so it was a farm at that time. So I think it was rural then, wasn't it? Although it was a very long time ago.
Actually, it does say Melton Borough's landscape. So is Melton Mowbray not part of the borough? Sorry, I just want to be a bit sort of
Part of the certainly, but
tongue in cheek here, Mr. Worley.
I'm not going to give in. I'm not.
Neither are we.
I do think the town does deserve good landscaping with its developments. And yeah, so I don't know what other policy there is that we can use to back that up.
About
If not EN1. Pardon?
it's all in D1.
All in D1. Okay, we'll go with D1 then. If that's the expert advice. Right. Okay. So do we have any? Oh yes, I've got lots of people want to speak now. Councillor Higgins.
Just go to the officers first, because I know.
I think Mr. Wall. Oh, actually, Mr. Power.
You may have covered the point. I just got the impression that members were indicating the general issues and were expecting the officers to put a bit of flesh on the bone. And it seems to me the issue here is 15 units, and members think it's an overdevelopment of the site, really. That's the impression I'm getting. Yeah.
I've got it too.
I think it was overdevelopment and lack of any landscaping and outdoor space.
As
a consequence of too many sort of units.
That's a symptom of development, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? They go together, don't they? Councillor Higgins, you still have hand raised?
Yeah. What it was is I was just looking at EN1 and I side with Mr. Worley. I don't think it works. So you are okay here, because I'm happy on D1, and I think we're all there on that. And like you say, is I do get sometimes we will need this type of development, but I think this road, this location, look at the neighbouring properties. I think it is just wrong, and and if the applicant's still here, is please work with us, and I'm sure we can get this over the line and get something developed. I'd hate just to see a charity take the money and run kind of thing. People, there is all that social conscience we've all got to have, and the neighbours, and I think as Councillor Pearson said. So I'm going to be now you've confirmed EN1 is gone, I'm going to be voting for the motion.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Councillor Holmes.
Just like to say that Spinney Farm Melton is actually in Newport Ward. So just to make a point, so I think EN1 still actually it could be in there, probably being facetious, but I'm just merely saying that we do have 3 farms in Melton. Oh dear, somebody's dog. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else wish to contribute to the debate before we go to the vote? No. Okay. So we have a proposal to refuse due to over-intensification and fails to meet local plan policy D1. Is that correct, Mr. Worley? Have I? That's okay.
Woof.
Pardon? Woof. Okay. Sorry. Oh dear. Right, we'll now go to the vote on that proposal.
Councillor Clancy, just before you move to the vote, I wanted to just confirm that Councillor Wood lost his internet connection partway through the debate, and he sent his apologies. He can't actually reconnect, so I wanted you to know that before you went through your list of members.
I'll cross him off then. Thank you very much for that, Natasha. The first one is Councillor Brown. Are you for, against, or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Chandler? For. Thank you. Councillor Faulkner?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Glancy? For. Councillor Higgins?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes?
For refusal, yeah.
Councillor Lumley? No, he's not here.
He's not here.
Sorry, Councillor Hewson. I've got an old list in front of me. Sorry. Councillor Hewson?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Posnett?
For.
Councillor Smedley?
For.
And Councillor Steadman?
For.
For. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is unanimous, the ones who are voting. Councillor Wood obviously has not voted because he's left the meeting. So that is refused in line with the conversation at this meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. Councillor Higgins, you have your hand raised.
It's for any other business, if that's okay, Chair.
Oh, yeah, okay. At the agenda now. Right. Item 4, urgent business. Now, I have nothing to report, but I presume that Councillor Higgins does.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. So I address the members as members, and obviously we have 28 members. Some of them aren't on the planning committee. The government has set out some new consultations in how it wants to deal with planning applications, and it's trying to do it in a positive way. I haven't seen all the details yet, and I think we're going to have to see the details. What I would like to say, and I'll go on record here, I think this planning committee and Melton Borough Council does positively plan and accept a lot of planning applications. It doesn't, I think there's a great importance, as we've seen tonight, when local ward councillors are involved in planning applications. And thank you very much for some of the generous comments regarding the Somerby application, because it was trying to work with the residents and the applicant, and obviously we've seen that at other sites here as well. I think we do need to put a response back to government and our MP and any other MP as well. And all I would like to say, and I've heard Councillor Holmes say this many times, is go away and let's make it better. And I do think by being very positive about planning and development, I don't think this committee or our council or our residents are saying no to development. But it is important when we get, and I won't mention the developers at all, when we have had developers come here with very poor design, poor applications, and we have asked them to go away and come back, and they have come back in some fantastic applications and development. And one I will say, I say it all the time, but I do think it is the benchmark has been the Taylor Wimpey one, which Councillor Glancy, Posnett and Lumley worked on. And there are other applications that we've had and rejected, and I know the developer's been not very happy about it, but as I understand, with one major application, they're coming back with a far better scheme, which are going to house our population in the future. But I just wanted to put that there. I think it would be really great that we could all work together as 28 councillors to put a response to government, working with our officers and our MP. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. It is worrying times ahead. I mean, lots of people are sort of saying, actually, we will lose any sort of power for to make decisions locally on this, because it will be given the green light to do basically whatever you want. But I think if we do get all our ducks in a row and set out our stall pretty early, and then developers will have to follow what we want, and then enforcement will kick in should they not. I think that's my simple understanding of how things are going. But I'll look to Mr. Worley to either confirm or say I'm barking up the wrong tree, because we've had lots of dogs barking today.
This is the white paper, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. It says lots of things because it's 100 pages long. And I don't get from it that it's saying anything like you'll lose all manner of control about doing things differently, quicker, and in a more modern way. I've got the link here on my screen. So as a first step, if I circulate that to everyone tomorrow to make it easy to find.
Brilliant.
And then we set up some sessions amongst ourselves plus 17 others to try and draw some conclusions.
I think that's a very good idea. We do need to address this and have a sort of coherent sort of response to, to the white paper. I think it's a very good idea. So I'll leave it to, well, myself and Jim and Lee and Joe to organise a meeting on this one.
Get the ball rolling in the morning.
Yeah, okay, that's what we'll do then. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for your taking part this evening. Mr. Power, you have your hand raised. I can't, you're on mute, Bob.
My understanding of the white paper is it does propose a pretty fundamental change to the system we've got now. But I suspect that there's going to be all kinds of resources, webinars and the like, from barristers' chambers and other experts who will be offering guidance and their interpretation of it. And I think it might be useful for members to tap into those and get as much information about what is really proposed, because I suspect that it might change during its consultation period. Anyway, yeah, I just thought I'd suggest that. And some of these webinars are, well, they're free, and I think some of them are on YouTube as well.
Yep, I think they are. I saw an email the other day actually with something on it. Councillor Chandler. You're on mute, Prue. Thank you.
I'm not.
You are. You're not now. No, you're right.
I've had a hell of a day today because we've got this proposal for a garden village coming right up to Bottisford for 5,000 houses. And of course, the Newark Advertiser are giving it great play. And I just don't know how to calm people down in Bottisford. I mean, we've got a village that's expanding rapidly, 400 applications in front of the planners at the moment, and to have 4,000 to 5,000 houses coming right up to us. What does a ward councillor say? I mean, the CPR have been on to me today to get a reaction. I mean, we need some guidance of how to respond to this. I mean, I've already written to Alicia Cairns, because it's the thing is, it's really bad news for Bottisford to get they're coming out into Bottisford onto the A52 on the draft plans. It's ridiculous, and there's been no consultation whatsoever. And, you know, people to pick up this morning, Robert Jenrick was on breakfast television saying, oh, we're going to make planning that much easier. I mean, I'm relieved that Jim says it's not, but, you know, he's feeding people this information that, oh, yes, we're going to make it so much easier for developers. And, you know, we've got to try and take the sting out of this, because I say it's not been a good day today.
It is. I think it's very, very worrying times, I think, ahead. And until we know anything definite, it is worrying, because everything is so unknown, isn't it? Councillor Higgins.
I was just going to quickly say is, and I said it earlier about this council, I think we're very positive working with developers and applicants. And I think the community, Melton has been one of the few places where they've welcomed the development, because they realised they were going to get bypass and the road and all the other things. And what I would just also say is, I don't think it's all about, and I certainly don't think it's about local councils blocking this at all. 9 out of 10 planning permissions go through with a permit, and there are a lot of applications, as we've said tonight, we give permission to, and then they just don't get built out. And that's not good at all. People can't live in a planning permission.
But opening up the, you know, they can build anywhere doesn't necessarily mean they're going to build. It just means that they've got permission to build. So I don't believe it's going to change the sort of built numbers, to be honest.
Are we still live streaming?
Councillor Holmes. Councillor Holmes, did you want to? And then we'll close the meeting, please.
Yeah, righto. Yeah, just that I just wonder where the people are going to get the money from to buy the houses, that's all. You know, we're probably, it's going to be a very difficult time. But having said all that, I do believe, and always have, that everyone should have a decent home to live in.
Thank you. Just before we go, we have arranged an affordable housing workshop. I was sending an email out later with the date on it, and hopefully a number of planning committee members will be able to attend. Celia Bowen has very kindly agreed to run the workshop. Okay, so that concludes the meeting this evening. So thank you very much, everybody, for your attendance. It is now 8:40. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.